So today I'm going to be reading from Samyutta Nikaya 41.7. This is the Godatta Sutta. On one occasion, the Venerable Godatta was dwelling at Machikasanda in the wild mango grove. Then Chitta the householder approached the Venerable Godatta, paid homage to him, and sat down to one side. The Venerable Godatta then said to him, as he was sitting to one side, "Householder, the measureless liberation of mind, the liberation of mind by nothingness, the liberation of mind by emptiness, and the signless liberation of mind, are these things different in meaning and also different in phrasing, or are they one in meaning and different only in phrasing?" So he's talking about these four things: measureless liberation of mind by nothingness, liberation of mind by emptiness, and the signless liberation of mind. And his question is, are these things pointing to one and the same thing, or are they different things? There is a method, Venerable Sir, by which these things are different in meaning and also different in phrasing. And there is a method by which they are one in meaning and different only in phrasing. In other words, they point to one particular state in one case, and in another case, they are different experiences. And what, Venerable Sir, is a method by which these things are different in meaning and also different in phrasing? Here, one dwells pervading one quarter with a mind imbued with loving kindness. Likewise, the second quarter, the third quarter, and the fourth quarter. Thus above, below, across, and everywhere, and to all as to himself, he dwells pervading the entire world with a mind imbued with loving kindness, vast, exalted, measureless, without hostility, without ill will. He dwells pervading one quarter with a mind imbued with compassion, with empathetic joy, with equanimity. Likewise, the second quarter, the third quarter, and the fourth quarter. Thus above, below, across, and everywhere. And to all as to himself, he dwells pervading the entire world with a mind imbued with these Brahmaviharas, vast, exalted, measureless, without hostility, without ill will. This is called the measureless liberation of mind. So when you are, it's an interesting word, pervade. We say radiate, right? Usually that's the word we use. The challenge in using that word is it makes some people push the feeling of loving kindness. You know, it's like, okay, this direction, all the loving kindness that can be possible here. In this direction, in this direction, in this direction, up, above, everywhere. And to pervade, to pervade means to imbue, to watch, to observe, to have an intention that may all beings in this direction be free of suffering, be filled with loving kindness. Or may all beings in this direction experience joy and the freedom from suffering. May all beings experience clarity and tranquility and equanimity, whatever it might be. And it's more about the intention that all beings in each direction experience these things. And because your mind becomes collected, you start to feel that in your own body or in your mind or as an experience in the mind. And at some point, there does feel like the experience of loving kindness or compassion or joy or equanimity is like the radiance of a flame. And it is just outward in all directions. And at some point, you experience that growing And just by your observation of it growing, you can feel into that. And as you feel into it, you start to experience a expansion. And then as you start to feel that expansion, you start to get into infinite space. And eventually you get into this field of experience where the loving kindness is pervading everything all at once. And there isn't a space where loving kindness is not. There isn't a space where compassion is not. There isn't a space where joy or equanimity are not. And it's measureless. It's not like, well, the loving kindness is only from here until about 1,000 miles. Only here until like Mars, It's measureless. This is what he means by the measureless liberation of mind. It's interesting he calls it measureless liberation of mind, because every jhana is a temporary liberation. When you are in the first jhana, your mind is free from the hindrances. As it says, quite secluded from sensual pleasures, secluded from unwholesome states, he enters into the first jhana with vitakka and vichara, the intentionalizing of an object, which is followed by joy and comfort, piti and sukha, and unification of the mind, chitta ekagata. It's not just ekagata, it's chitta ekagata. The mind becomes unified. And then when you are in any of the other jhanas, the second jhana, your mind is liberated from the thinking and examining thought. Your mind is free of the intentionalizing. And as you get into the third jhana, joy becomes a bit too much, so your mind gets liberated from that as a condition. As you get into the fourth jhana, your mind gets liberated from the comfort and experiences purity of mindfulness due to equanimity. Your mind is very pure, very equanimous, alert, aware. And then your mind is liberated from notions of form when it starts to experience infinite space. And then it's liberated from the experience of space as it gets into consciousness. Then it's liberated from the arising and passing away, which makes it seem, or which it makes the mind see into the nature of the three characteristics. By seeing that it's impermanent, because it keeps arising and passing away. It's unstable. Consciousness is unstable. It becomes tiresome, and therefore there's dukkha. And you see, I'm not controlling this process. It's an impersonal process. This is another kind of liberation. And in that, the mind experiences nothingness. Or from that, the mind experiences nothingness. And it's liberated from the arising and passing away of consciousness. And then there comes a point where the mind is liberated from the nothingness, enters into neither perception nor non-perception. And neither perception nor non-perception means neither recognizing nor non-recognizing, neither labeling nor non-labeling. Because perception is that process of the mind that says, this is the color red, this is an oak tree, this is a table, this is a book, and so on and so forth. The mind's ability to do that becomes very fuzzy because the perception faculty is starting to slow down. And then when you have cessation, perception, and feeling, the mind is liberated from even that state of the eighth jhana. And the experience of cessation of perception and feeling is where there is a gap in your mental stream. And in that moment, the mind touches Nibbana. And that is the ultimate liberation. Nothing beyond that. And when it comes back, it starts to see how the mind reboots, creates all of the concepts, starts up through the links of dependent origination, experiences joy, experiences clarity, experiences relief. And the mind feels free. The mind feels liberated in that moment. Until the next arising comes and there's something that, disturbs the mind. So, jhanas are temporary liberation because they cease the hindrances, first and foremost. There is the idea of the jhana gami or the jhana anagami. This is found in a couple of references in the suttas, in, I think, Anguttara Nikaya. And what it says is that one who enters the stream, when they continue to practice being in jhana, meaning you have consistent, reliable, everyday practice of meditating and entering these states, that eventually, when the mind goes, when it's time to go, when it's time to die, that the mind will incline to that particular jhana that is most prevalent, has been most prevalent in one's practice. And because one is already a Sotapanna, the first three fetters are gone. What are the first three fetters? The doubt in the Buddha, Dhamma, and Sangha, the personality view, and the rites and rituals, right? The attachment to rites and rituals with the idea that they will take you to Nibbana. What are the other two fetters? Sensual craving and aversion, ill will. When you are in jhana, the five hindrances are not present in the mind. Your mind is free in that moment of the five hindrances. And thereby, when the mind, as a Sotapanna, enters into that jhana, it is also free of sensual desire and free of any ill will. And so effectively, one is an anagami. And what it says there is that the mind will then, there will be another rebirth in that particular jhana or in that particular brahmaloka, from which then the mind will never come back. Right? That's the anagami. So jhanas are very powerful in that way. They liberate the mind from the hindrances. Notice that. See that, the purity of mind in that. Don't just get bored by the eighth jhana, by the quiet mind. Realize how many millions, if not billions of people, right, have no access to this. They're suffering. They are identifying. They don't know any better. They are riddled with ignorance and craving and conceit. But when you are in jhana, your mind is free from that. There may still be some conceit because I'm in this jhana. This jhana is pleasing to me. So if you just see jhana as jhana, in the seen there's only the seen, in the heard there's only the heard, in the sense there's only the sense, in the cognizing there's only the cognizing, in the meditating there's only the meditation. Now, loving kindness, or any of the Brahma Viharas are seen as measureless liberations of the mind. Because there is a series of suttas called the finger snap suttas, which says, then if one were to even have a finger snap's length of loving kindness in their mind would not be devoid of jhana. So that is a liberation of mind, liberation from the hindrances. Even better than this, on a practical level, the loving kindness is a deterrent against karma. There is the analogy of the spoonful of salt that you put into a glass of water, and it is salty when you drink it. But you put the same amount, that spoon of salt, into a large lake, you will not experience the saltiness. So what does loving kindness do? It expands our mind. It expands our ability and capacity to experience that karma from, oh my God, what's happening to my life, to, oh, it's barely an inconvenience. Right? It's like, okay, this sucks, but I live. This is the conch blower. It's called the conch blower. Or it's related to that sutta, the conch blower. So the mind experiences liberation in that way, the measureless liberation of mind through the Brahma Viharas. And what, Venerable Sir, is the liberation of mind by nothingness? Here, by completely transcending the base of the infinity of consciousness, aware that there is nothing, a bhikkhu enters and dwells in the base of nothingness. This is called the liberation of mind by nothingness. So we talked about this, nothingness being the seventh jhana, so to speak, or the ayatana, right, the arupa jhana of nothingness, is liberated. It's a liberation because your mind is free of any of the hindrances. Your mind is free of any kind of clinging towards any future rebirth related to those hindrances. So by transcending infinite consciousness, right, one enters into the base of nothingness. This is how you can call it the liberation of mind by nothingness. And what, Venerable Sir, is the liberation of mind by emptiness? Here, one gone to the forest, or the foot of a tree, or to an empty hut, reflects thus. Empty is this of self, what belongs to self. This is called the liberation of mind by emptiness. This is where you try to trace the I thought, the me, mine, myself, and your mind doesn't find it. As soon as it tries to look for the I, what happens? There's just a blank space. The mind is kind of just in this space which is relaxed and free of any kind of conceit. And this is the emptiness liberation of mind. This is the practical experience of anatta. So some can do this by reflecting on each of the aggregates. So you guys, I think, was it yesterday morning or whenever you did the 5 aggregates meditation? That is the experience of emptiness. To get to that experience of, oh, this is not me, this is not mine, this is not myself. It can be a very powerful experience. And the mind experiences liberation in there. And this is one of the gates to liberation. 3 gates. The first is signless, the second is undirectedness, and the third is emptiness. So when you're able to try to trace the I thought, when you try to find the self in the experience, only to find that there's no self there, your mind relaxes into that field of awareness. And it is free of any kind of conceit. We'll get into the signless and the undirected shortly. Actually, we're going to get there right now. And what, Venerable Sir, is the signless liberation of mind? Here, with non-attention to all signs, a bhikkhu enters and dwells in the signless collectedness of mind. This is called the signless liberation of mind. So, there is another sutta called the Bhikkhuni's Residence, which talks about the undirected meditation. So now we've got 3 things: signlessness, undirectedness, and emptiness. So what do we mean by when he says, here with the non-attention to all signs, he enters and dwells in the signless collectedness of mind? As you take up an object of meditation, your mind collects around it and experiences the jhanas. And as you get deeper and deeper, and as usually when you get to the 8th jhana, from nothingness to the 8th, your mind becomes withdrawn and rests in itself. And so it's no longer looking at the mental field, the mental screen on which there is the object. It becomes collected within itself. And this is what we call quiet mind. The mind takes itself as an object. It's a reflexive awareness. Some people like to call it awareness of awareness. You can call it whatever you want, it's fine. But there comes a point where the mind gets disinterested with even that. And the mind collected in itself, it starts to soften the borders around the mind. And so the analogy I use is like a beam of light that you shine out up into the sky and goes out into space. And suppose there were no meteorites or asteroids or stars or galaxies or any kind of cosmic stellar body, and that this light continued on into space, undeterred, unimpacted, with no landing. This is the signless collectedness of mind. Some people liken this to pure awareness, because it's just awareness without an object. So signless here is animitta. Nimitta here is actually an object. So it's an objectless awareness, an objectless experience, an objectless meditation. It's like the consciousness without surface. This is what we're pointing at, the anidasanam vijnanam, the non-reflective awareness, the non-manifestative awareness. And so it says, non-attention to all signs, he enters and dwells into the signless collectedness of mind. Now, this is just one way of doing it. The other is the emptiness. So in terms of the quality of the experience, whether it's signlessness, undirectedness, or emptiness, there are like 3 different doors leading to the same room. It just depends which gate you use, which door you use. When you realize that this experience of impermanence or instability is present in all conditioned experience, and that they are subject to change, and therefore even objects being conditioned are subject to change, you become disenchanted with all objects, disenchanted with all signs, and your mind enters into signlessness. When you realize that any kind of intentionality will ultimately lead to dukkha, no matter how well intentioned you are about bringing up happiness and joy, but because it is conditioned, it will be subject to change. It will pass away. So you stop trying. You let go of all trying. You let go of all intentionality. And you have desirelessness, or the undirected meditation. When you realize that there is no me, mine, or myself in this experience, and you see that it's an impersonal process, your mind becomes free of conceit, free of any notions of self, and enters into the emptiness, liberation of mind. In Majjhima Nikaya 43, if I remember correctly, Majjhima Nikaya 43, and in Samyutta Nikaya 41.6, there they talk about when his mind experiences a cessation of perception and feeling, when he comes out of it, what contact does he make? And it says he makes three kinds of contact. Contact with the signless, the undirected contact, and the empty contact. The signless contact, undirected contact, empty contact. Why? Because Nibbana is objectless. Nibbana has no intention, and Nibbana has no self. Is not me, is not mine, not myself. The mind makes contact with Nibbana, as a result of which it then experiences joy and relief. And so the first contact that's present is a contact conditioned by the unconditioned. The contact that is the mind and the so-called object of Nibbana, and its corresponding mind consciousness without any reflection, without any surface, without any manifestation. The anidasanam vinyanam, the consciousness that is signless, undirected, and empty of self. Not conditioned by the usual eyes, ears, nose, tongue, and body. It's a supramundane experience for that moment. So this is what you can call the emptiness liberation of mind, or signless liberation of mind, or undirected liberation of mind. Three different doors leading to the same thing. Just depends on how you decide to go. Maybe you are an unstable person. Maybe you're an impermanent person. Maybe you are an undirected person. Maybe you're an empty person. Right? You decide. You choose. And your mind will just let go, and touch Nibbana. This, Venerable Sir, is the method by which these things are different in meaning and also different in phrasing. And what, Venerable Sir, is the method by which these things are one in meaning and different only in phrasing? In other words, these different ideas of the measureless liberation of mind, the liberation of mind through nothingness, the signless liberation of mind, and the emptiness liberation of mind, they all point to one thing, the same thing. And so what is that? Lust, Venerable Sir, is a maker of measurement. Hatred is a maker of measurement. Delusion is a maker of measurement. In other words, greed, hatred, and delusion are makers of measurement. What do we mean by that? What do we mean by measurement? Conceit. When the mind starts to compare and measure up against something, there is conceit. And it is through greed, hatred, and delusion these measurements happen. For one whose taints are destroyed, these have been abandoned, cut off at the root, made like palm stumps, obliterated so that they are no more subject to future arising. To whatever extent they are measureless liberations of mind, in other words, to whatever extent there are various measureless liberations of mind, the unshakable liberation of mind, the akupa cheto vimutti. Akupa means unshakable, is declared the chief among them. And that liberation of mind is empty of lust, empty of hatred, empty of delusion. And so it's the empty liberation of mind as well. Then he says, greed or lust, Venerable Sir, is a something. Hatred is a something. Delusion is a something. For one whose taints are destroyed, these have been abandoned, cut off at the root, made like palm stumps, obliterated so that they are no more subject to future arising. To whatever extent there are various liberations of mind by nothingness, the unshakable liberation of mind is declared the chief among them. And that liberation of mind is, again, empty of greed, empty of hatred, empty of delusion. So he says greed is a something, hatred is a something, delusion is a something. In other words, there is this element of greed, there is this element of hatred, there's an element of delusion, so to speak. They are something, they are an object, they are there, present as an object. But in the mind that is unshakable liberation of mind, these things are not present. And so there is nothingness there. In the experience of nothingness as a jhana, as an ayatana, you don't have anything there. There is just complete, clear nothingness, however that manifests for you. But this liberation of mind, what we're talking about, is full enlightenment, full awakening. There is nothing called greed. There is nothing called hatred. There is nothing called delusion present in such a mind. Lust, Venerable Sir, is a maker of signs. Hatred is a maker of signs. Delusion is a maker of signs. For one whose taints are destroyed, these have been abandoned, cut off at the root, made like palm stumps, obliterated so that they are no more subject to future arising. To whatever extent there are signless liberations of mind, the unshakable, the akupa cheto vimutti, the unshakable liberation of mind, is declared the chief among them. And that particular liberation of mind is empty of greed, empty of hatred, empty of delusion. So greed is a maker of signs. Greed, hatred, and delusion are the three roots that the formations can be rooted in, which give rise to a consciousness that is stained with one or more of the 16 different kinds of defilements. And they make an object of craving. There's a me, and there is something that I want, or someone I want, or an experience I want to hold on to. That's the object of craving. Or there is a me, and there is something I don't like, someone I don't like, an experience I don't like. And so there is an object of hatred. Or there is a me, and there is something that I want as me, mine, or myself, that I say, no, this is mine. This book is mine, this table is mine, it's mine, don't touch. Right? That's the delusion. That's the identification. And it is a maker of object, it's a maker of signs. But in the mind that is fully liberated, there is no maker of signs that says, I don't like this person, I like this person, or I identify with this thing. This, Venerable Sir, is the method by which these things are one in meaning and different only in phrasing. It is a gain for you, householder. It is well gained by you, householder, in that you have the eye of wisdom that ranges over the deep word of the Buddha. That's how the sutta ends. Okay, let's share some merit. May suffering ones be suffering free, and the fear-struck fearless be. May the grieving shed all grief, and may all beings find relief. May all beings share this merit that we have thus acquired for the acquisition of all kinds of happiness. May beings inhabiting space and earth, devas and nagas of mighty power, share this merit of ours. May they long protect the Buddha's dispensation. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu.